What's up, guys? My name is Cameron Gallagher from We Are Film, and today we're talking all about the Nanlite PavoSlim 60C. So let's check it out. So I want to start this video off by saying that I am not sponsored by Nanlite whatsoever. I'm going to gush about these quite a bit, but that is actually because I reached out to Nanlite in order to check these out. So I'd seen these lights in a YouTube video and was really intrigued by what they were and how they worked. So I reached out to Nanlite. They were super kind enough to send these over. So I just wanted to start by saying that this is not a sponsored video. I was sent these for free, but I am the one who reached out. I was really excited to try these lights. So if I gush a little, I promise it is all 100% honesty. So these lights are the Pavo or PavoSlim 60C. So these are a set of lights from Nanlite that kind of go along with their kit that are a flat LED panel. And really their claim to fame is the portability, the slimness, and then in my case, the C, which stands for color, meaning it's full RGB. So I gotta say, as a quick review of this, I really am enjoying these lights, so much so that I'm most likely going to be purchasing the 120C, probably two of them, and I'll explain why a little bit later in the video. But I have been incredibly happy with these lights. I really loved everything I've been able to do with them. The portability, the build quality, the flexibility of what you can do with these is really intense. So first off, I want to say that I was really impressed with the carrying case that this thing came in. It wasn't one of those cases where once you unpack it, you're afraid you'll never pack it the same way twice. So they did give you a lot of extra room for other accessories. The other thing too is that this kit is super compact and incredibly light. And I'll talk about that with more build quality. I mean, I could probably fit like 10 or 12 of them on my innovative cart. So if you're someone who's doing a lot of traveling or you're working kind of on the fly, the size and portability of this whole kit is really just next to none. So of course you get the light, which I like that it's stored up top. So that way you can kind of just unfold it. It's easy to grab. Granted, I will say that it is top heavy, so it has a tendency to flop over. Not a huge deal, but just something to keep in mind. So the kit comes with the light, the ballast, an extension cable from the light to the ballast, as well as a cable from the ballast to the wall. And then it also comes with a ballast holder. So this is something that clamps onto a C-stand or wherever it may be to hold the ballast. You also get a grid, another piece of a softbox we'll talk about later. And then you also get two different types of mounting. This is really cool, and I want to start off with this mounting. So one thing that I really find a problem with a lot of modern lights is the way that you're able to mount them on a stand or just the overall usability. Sometimes if you're trying to undersling a light, it gets really hard, or if you're trying to maneuver it in a certain way, especially panels because they're so wide, it gets really difficult in order to mount these. So Nanlite gives you two different types. One is sort of a ball head mount, which is pretty standard. It's a quick release, so it snaps on the back and slides. The other great thing is there are two spots for that sliding mechanism, which I'll get to in a second. And then the other one is a baby pin version. So this is great if you're using it in a C-stand grip head, or if you want to really boom it really far out. The thing that is really nice is that Nanlite actually gives you two places to attach these lights. One of them is dead center, so that way you get a center mount. This is great if you're using multiple, which I'll again talk about later. But the other is that there is one down low by the bottom of the light. So this way, if you're trying to tilt the light really far down, the mounting point doesn't get in the way. So the bottom of the light doesn't get in the way of you actually tilting the head. So that's really awesome that Nanlite thought of that, and they gave you two different options to mount these. You can pretty much put these wherever you need. And again, we'll talk about more about the placement of these and why that's so important later. So the build quality is super solid. The light itself is just a giant, basically heat sink. It's built pretty tough. I think everything feels heavy duty. The ballast itself is plastic, although it feels pretty heavy. Same with the clamps and the mounting options. They all feel pretty good. I don't think any of them are going to break down or not work on me in the future. One of the only downsides I did see is that the mounting can be a little bit tight when you're putting it on the back. That's probably a good thing. That way it's not going to accidentally come undone. But I just will say that it's not like a single-handed mounting where you're going to slide it on there super fast. Again, that's probably a good thing, so that way it doesn't come undone, but it's just something to keep in mind that we'll kind of see how that wears over time. So the biggest reason why I actually reached out to Nanlite about these lights, and one of the pieces of the build that I think is probably the most innovative, is the foldable sort of popping softbox. So the way that this works is that the light compacts down to a flat sort of just LED panel with a little bit raised where the softbox is. And then what you do is when you take the light out, you unvelcro either side, and the softbox just kind of pops open, sort of like those old reflectors used to have back in the day. This is an absolute genius move when it comes to lighting for speed, versatility, just the ability to do that so quickly comes in such handy when you're on shoots that need to move fast. Softboxes are always just the bane of my existence, having to build those and rebuild them, and they come undone. And I'll talk more about that in the production that we did later and why that was so beneficial. But it was the main reason why I reached out to Nanlite in the beginning. When I saw that pop out softbox, I just thought, that's so clever, it's so fast, and it works awesome. Now, obviously, I haven't tested the longevity of these, so I'm hoping that it holds up, but I don't see that being a problem, and it seems like most of them could be easily replaced. So if in the future it did work where it were to break or something, I feel like it would be really easy to replace because pretty much everything is modular in some way. So the ballast has V-mount and NPF on either side, and I really like this because I think it's nice that there is some variable options. Obviously, the 60C is a very small wattage light, so using NPF is possible. I know on some of the bigger ones it's probably not, but having the option to use the NPF or the V-mount is really handy. 2 V-mounts would have been great, but to be honest, I don't use them often on V-mount anyway, but it's nice to have the option. And again, if I had some of those NPF batteries, it's there. So for me, that's just another win in the build. So the cables are locking, so all of the cables from the light to the ballast and the ballast to the wall lock in. They're a tad confusing, although I will say once you get the hang of it, took me a couple tries, it's easy. You just lock them in, they lock in, you pull the pins, they come out really easily. One of the other pieces of the build are the grid and how the grid attaches. And again, this is another thing that really struck me as just pure genius. The grid, like a bed sheet, sort of just fits around the edge of the softbox, so it's super easy to put on and pull off. There's no Velcro involved. All right, so let's talk about the light. So this is obviously a full RGB light. When RGB lights first came out, I kind of felt like it was a little bit of a trend, like, oh yeah, cool, you can do some fun effects, things like that. But I think that we're starting to see the actual use case for these and why they're so handy, and especially now that the output of these lights is so much better than it used to be. So of course you can just run this in your basic bicolor mode, so anywhere from, I think it's 7,500 all the way down to 2,700 Kelvin. I also do love that there is a green magenta shift, so you can plus and minus green and magenta quite a bit, which is awesome if you're dialing into lights on set. That was one of the reasons why I wanted this light in my kit. Was I'm constantly doing interviews in schools or in conference buildings or offices or just inside places that have weird color temperature lights, and it's really hard only having daylight fixtures, either having to gel them, which is really difficult, especially with a soft source, or just having to then turn out all the lights, so suddenly I'm having to deal with now a full dark space. Where with these, I can walk into a school or a building that has some strange lighting, I can find that green magenta shift, or I can use the full RGB to tune it exactly to what the color temperature of the light is. And now I have a key source that matches my background. I'm not having to deal with weird spilling or, the background's really yellow and my person being interviewed is really blue. Now, of course, there is the full RGB mode, so you can dial in the hue, things like that. Of course, if you want to just get like a certain look or you're wanting to dial in a certain hue, there is that setting, as well as the RGB setting, so you could actually pick RGB values. So if you had a certain color you had to match for branding reasons or things like that. Again, commercial, that's awesome. But then my favorite mode is the gel mode, and I think this is where you really see the potential of these lights. Working with gels is a bit of a nightmare in the past because of course you're having to mount it, then tack on the fact that if you're using a soft source, you have to then mount it before it becomes a soft source. So if it's a softbox, there's like gel softbox holders, which are just like a total nightmare. You have to have all these gels, keep them around. So the cool part is these are all real gels. So these are all real gel names that you can go and find out in the wild. And I think what's really cool about this is being able to dial in specific looks. So if you're looking for a more greenish blue background, you want to use like a steel blue like we did in the production I'll talk about later, or if you wanted to do something where I just like a little bit of quarter CTS or color temperature straw on my key light just to warm it up ever so slightly, you're able to do that. And then I also like the fact that you can apply these gels to either a daylight balanced or a tungsten balanced light. So again, if you're maybe recreating something that was using tungsten balance and you know that they had a half CTS on a tungsten light, you can go ahead and recreate that with the 60C. All right, so why would you use these lights? Why are they cool? What have we done with them? So I did use them on a recent commercial shoot where I actually mounted 2 of them for a key light in an interview in a barn. It was pretty simple. It was nothing too crazy. There is actually a dual mount that Nanlite makes that I think is really handy, and I'll talk about that later in some more stuff. Also in here, like for studio lighting, it's really great for product photos. So I did a little bit of a product shoot recently where I needed just a small light that I can easily move around. So I DP'd a short film for my friend Taylor Jarvis, and if you're not following him, be sure to go follow his YouTube channel because he's gonna have a short called Servants coming out very, very soon. But it was a really fun shoot because it was the first chance we got to use these Nanlites on set, And actually, we found a reason why you'd want to use these over other lights as well. So the main setup that we were doing was this kind of conversation scene between this priest and this woman, and it's a horror film. And we wanted it to be moody with a little bit of style, especially in the background, to have this kind of strange moonlight. So one of the fun things was using these two lights to dial in the blue steel look, which is this kind of greenish blue that we did pull back a little bit in post, but it was really nice being able to just throw these up anywhere, whether they were just sitting on the ground or they were mounted up high. Being so light and easily mountable, a C-stand was more than enough to boom this thing out really far. Now, I don't actually have a boom arm, but I was thinking that these are the type of lights that would work perfectly on a boom arm because they're light enough to fully extend without having to have a bunch of counterbalance weight. So using these on the short film, we dialed in this kind of moonlight look, which was sort of the background elements of our conversation scene, and then in this bathroom scene was our main key. So it was kind of that moonlight spilling over, becoming our full key. Now, what was really funny is that we ran into a constant problem with our main key light. So I only had these two 60Cs with me. So what I actually needed to do was use my 120T from Aperture to be our key. There was a giant problem though that is so solvable by these PavoSlims. So we had our 120T with a softbox on it that was a 4x1 softbox. So it was 4 feet long by 1 feet wide, and it was very deep. And the problem was, although we were shooting widescreen anamorphic, so we had quite a bit of vertical space that we were dipping into, so we didn't have to we could hide some stuff. It was a major problem when the actors had to stand up and walk over. We were constantly getting the light in the shot. We couldn't get it any higher in the ceiling. And it was just kind of a nightmare because the softbox and the light was probably about 3 or 4 feet deep. So you really had 3 or 4 feet of your ceiling that was totally eaten up by the light. During this, I realized that the 120Cs, and especially 2 of the 120Cs from Nanlite put together, would create a 4x1 identical to what we had source that would have been much lighter, way thinner, probably would have been only maybe less than a foot in its thickness. So we could have gotten a lot more ceiling height, and it would have been a lot easier to boom that. So I'm genuinely thinking about buying 2 of the 120Cs where I could put them together to kind of match the 240C that they now make as a 2x2 panel. Great for key lights, especially if you're out somewhere a little bit brighter, but then also be able to separate those and put them in a 4x1. So if I wanted a really long panel or 2 2x1s, there's just a lot of variation that you're able to do. And the great part is that all of these are in the same world, so you can connect them through the app, which is really great if you want to control a bunch of lights wirelessly. We actually had one of the lights during the short film up a flight of stairs, so it was really annoying to have to go back and forth. So having them on Bluetooth on my phone, I can just sit there and adjust them. I will say the app is not perfect. I wish it was a little bit simpler. When I connected the lights to the app, they automatically reset. So I do think the app needs a little bit more work, but that's sort of just little complaints here. So overall, as you can probably tell, I'm very happy with these lights. I'm really excited about them. I've been having a lot of fun using them, and what I've been able to do has just been, honestly, more than anything, easier than ever. Of course, all lights are gonna be great, and most lights these days are gonna be more than fine when it comes to color renditioning and TLCI and all that good stuff. But to have something that's easy to set up, that's quick to set up, that is high quality, and that gives you versatility when it comes to color or gels or green and magenta shift, that is the type of stuff that we want as filmmakers in our lights. And Nanlite has really delivered on this PavoSlim line. So a huge thank you to Nanlite for sending these out. Again, I really appreciate it. And if you liked the video, be sure to like and comment, subscribe. And of course, be sure to follow me on my personal channel to see my short films. And also be sure to follow Taylor on his YouTube to check out his short film Servants, coming very soon. And guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys later.